Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game Mess. So, today kind of fun and exciting video for you guys today because I'm going to be doing an initial impression and review of the MiSTer MultiSystem 2 Arcade from Heber. If you can't tell already, this looks a little bit different than your standard MiSTer setup. That's because there's a big, chunky, glorious looking JAMMA edge at the bottom of this device. Now, this is intended to go into an arcade cabinet and basically be your all-in-one MiSTer FPGA setup as a multi-system 2. It is fully featured as everything you need to set it up in a cabinet, whether you're dealing with JAMMA or even some JVS stuff, which I'll explain in just a moment. But we have to go over this entire thing from start to finish so you understand who it's for, what it does, and why it really is a big deal. And you'll see here outside of the MultiSystem 2 logo, the big thing is you're going to have a full JAMMA edge as well as different inputs for trackballs and other controls, a Capcom CPS kick harness which is listed as CPS 1 but is the same for CPS 2, as well as what they're calling control dock, an extension to have other inputs into the actual system as well. And we'll get into what's underneath the expansion port in just a bit. Only other fun feature on the front, you get a sync button as well as a volume with a potentiometer so you can turn the system volume up and down, and stereo outputs in the back, but we'll get into those in just a moment. And obviously this is based on the MultiSystem 2, which I've already done a review on and is still in my daily rotation on my actual OG OLED 65-inch TV, and I absolutely love it. It does everything I need, nothing more and nothing less. If you want to see a review on what the MultiSystem 2 does outside of being on a JAMMA Edge as an arcade edition, I will leave a link in the description below so you can check out that initial review as well. But if this thing does exactly what the MultiSystem 2 does, and I know it does because I have tested it, it's going to be a very useful thing for MiSTer FPGA enthusiasts. Now around the back, you're going to have a VGA output as well as 4 USB ports and that full SD card for your installation. Additionally, you're going to have stereo headphones out as well as stereo pins left and right on actual bare pins so you can wire them up to your arcade cabinet. Because don't forget, JAMMA by a standard is going to be mono if you want stereo output for arcade cores that are going to support it, or any of the console or handheld cores, which you can certainly play on an arcade cabinet as well. This is where you're going to want to get your audio because JAMMA is still a mono setup. And that definitely is a very nice addition, and it's nice to see that you have options here. If your cabinet is wired up for just speakers and you have the bare wire, you can go ahead and crimp new pins on if you need to, and go ahead and put stereo audio in. And if you just want to go the headphone jack route, you can do that as well. And one of the nice things is here, of course, on a JAMMA cabinet, you're probably going to use the JAMMA control setup, but you do have 4 USB ports in, and of course, if you have something like a tri-sync monitor, you can get that 31 kilohertz VGA out. Now around the front, you're also going to be able to power this thing over USB-C. So honestly, even though I can't imagine too many people wanting to do this, if you wanted to use this in a cabinet or even outside of a cabinet with USB power in, USB control, and then having that VGA cable go out to a DAC, you totally could do that. It's not what I would recommend, but it's definitely an option. And if you want to have one MiSTer for your cabinet and for your TV, you definitely could set it up that way. And if you're not familiar with JAMMA, you're probably not watching this video because this thing is for arcade enthusiasts, and it definitely is something that has a perfect place in the MiSTer FPGA ecosystem because it is an all-in-one board. The Cyclone 5 chip, the FPGA is going to be right there, and you're going to be good to go. Now, one note I would say is I just wish this had CPS, not CPS 1, because of course it's going to work for CPS 2 kick harnesses as well. They are wired up the same. And you'll see there is a bank of dip switches for that control dock, so you can kind of play around with whatever you want in there. I'll get into that in just a moment. But it really is fully featured. There is nothing you can't control via the MultiSystem 2 arcade, and having that kick harness right up front is going to be a big deal. And if that doesn't sound familiar to you, maybe just play SNK 4-button games on basically every Capcom system out there. As far as the arcade is concerned for the fighting games, they use 6 buttons, and some of the buttons actually come off what they call a kick harness, which is additional inputs that would not be on the JAMMA Edge. And it's one of those things, if you go USB in, doesn't really matter, but if you actually want to bare wire this into a JAMMA harness inside of your arcade cabinet, the MultiSystem 2 arcade is going to have everything you need to be able to do that the same way you would on real hardware. Now taking a look under the hood here, just like the MultiSystem 2, the home console version, I really love how concise Heber is with their electrical engineering and their PCB layout. This is a MiSTer FPGA on a custom board with JAMMA and all the other arcade hookups you could possibly want, including fan headers, in case you want to pop a fan in here if your cabinet's particularly hot, but generally this thing should run at a perfectly normal temperature. And taking a closer closer look at the PCB, just like the Multisystem 2 for consoles, this thing is absolutely all-encompassing. There is not a single feature that I would have requested that isn't already on this thing, and honestly, in some ways, I feel like there's probably features on here that no one is ever going to use, but I love that they give you basically the entirety of what you could possibly want, even if you're never going to actually use half of it. And the same thing goes to be said for the Multisystem 2. Again, link in the description below for the review on that. I've been using this thing basically every day or every other day since it came in, and I've had absolutely zero issues with it whatsoever. I turn it on, I start playing games, I turn it off. It's basically just everything I need, and that really is nice. And because the MiSTer FPGA ecosystem keeps growing and we keep getting more and more arcade cores every single week, this is definitely something that is to be commended. The only strike I have against the MiSTer Multisystem 2 arcade is there isn't a mouse 3D printed on the case, so I can't make my same gotta feed the mouse a cheese joke here, so you just get the old one. Now taking a look down here, you will see that there are headers for both 12 volt as well as 5 volt fans in case you want to put some active cooling on there. I think that heatsink is going to be perfectly fine unless for some reason your cabinet is generating a metric ton of heat. And for the most part, most cabinets have an exhaust fan out anyway, so this really shouldn't be anything you need to deal with, but it is nice that it is included here. And taking a closer look at the control dock, there is accessible dip switches that you can articulate back and forth depending on what you're doing. If you want analog trackball in, we'll get into that in just a moment in the video, you can do that. It's going to come with full comprehensive directions. You'll see here the extra I/O. That is where you're going to put the pins for some of that stuff. And you're also going to get a set of GPIO pins that are going to be accessible to snack if you still want to use that. Now I personally can't think of a reason why you would in a JAMMA cabinet, but it's one of those things that is nice that it is there. And again, having this potentiometer for the volume, you're going to be able to control that in a very granular way, and definitely that's important because every single cabinet seems to have its own audio volume. Now I will say, as far as the edge is concerned, obviously you wouldn't be hooking this up to a super gun because what would be the point in that? But for ease of showing this in a video, of course that's how I'm going to do it. And the first thing I noticed, the number one thing I care about and check, is if the JAMMA edge is the correct thickness and size, and if my harness or wiring looms go onto it easily. 10 out of 10 good there, absolutely no issues whatsoever. It's not too narrow, it's not too thick, it's absolutely nailing the JAMMA standard with those gold plated fingers right there. You're going to be 100% good to go on that. And just to do a close-up of that as well, I know it seems like a very small thing, but it's something I always take a look at because JAMMA boards, JAMMA is a standard, but honestly, with the boards out there, there is tight and loose fitment, and the number one thing you don't want is too tight or too loose of a fit on the JAMMA edge. And of course, it is keyed, so if you do have this, make sure you have a key installed in your female version of the JAMMA harness, or else you could have a very bad time. But taking this thing off requires one finger. The fitment is good. You're not going to break any connections, but you're also not going to have that thing have some sort of incredible Hulk vice grip style fit onto the edge, and that's definitely something I've seen in other devices. Now the nice thing is, depending on how your cabinet's set up, you can use this any number of ways. You could totally pop this into something like a cabinet that doesn't actually use JAMMA, that you put a PC in, go ahead and use that VGA out, use the USB outs. But if you do have something like an actual JAMMA harness, you can go ahead and wire your controls into there, or if you so wanted to, on something like a super gun, you can send the signals through to the Multisystem 2 arcade, because that's exactly how this stuff works. And again, there's so many different ways. You totally can play this outside of a cabinet, or if you have a cabinet where you just put an actual arcade stick on top, you could do something like take an actual TR Octopus fight stick, my preferred way to play any sort of arcade game at this point in time, and have that go in via USB or even bare wire via that DB15 into something like the Multisystem 2 arcade. And if you have a 31 kilohertz monitor in there, or even a flat panel VGA, you have everything covered, because don't forget, you're going to have the ability to tube both standard and medium resolution off the actual JAMMA edge. But if you want 31 kilohertz out, you want VGA. On my super gun, you can go SCART out, and that's how I captured for this, just because of the ease of use of getting it into my actual capture system. But you get basically the ultimate choice as to how you want to actually connect this thing to any cabinet, and that really does make a difference in arcade enthusiast circles. Now additionally, Heber sent in their Module Arc trackball. It's kind of hard to say. I want to say modular arc, but I'm putting those words together as it's written, and they actually have reworked some cores on the control side of things to work even better with a trackball. And if you ever tried to play some of the trackball games on MiSTer FPGA with just an analog stick, it is always way too loose of a feel, and it makes it very difficult to actually play them. So it really is fun that they are making this device for your cabinet, because most people don't actually have a dedicated trackball cabinet out there. They have an arcade stick, probably with a 6-button setup, and when they want to play trackball games, they connect something and put it on top of their actual control panel in some format. And I will say this trackball feels every bit as good as it needs to. I do wish there was a golden T core for MiSTer FPGA, but outside of that, we do have some trackball cores, even if the overall games aren't exactly my favorite things in the world. That is the funny thing. Not a huge trackball fan as far as stuff like Marble Madness is concerned, just because I usually suck, but I've come to realize, having tested this, I don't really like Marble Madness because I just didn't have the right controller. That trackball is smooth, no notes on it whatsoever. And taking a look at the inside, everything is lovingly wired up with quick disconnects there. Those 110 quick disconnects, you see the silver pieces going into the buttons. And Heber even produced a breakout board to be able to connect all this stuff up and actually add to it, which is totally overkill. You could do this bare wiring without any sort of actual daughter board in there. And everything, again, the common ground's just 100% done exactly how I would do it, and exactly how any arcade collector or enthusiast would do it. There's even recesses in the back to add more buttons. The only note I have on this whatsoever is I wish there was a little bit of a support post in the middle to keep a little bit of the actual plastic flex down. It is quite minimal, but it's the only thing I thought to myself, hey, that would be a nice improvement. And as far as using this thing with a trackball is concerned, if you use the correct cores, everything works correctly, and you can play a game like Marble Madness and not suck at it. I mean, honestly, I still suck at it, but I suck a lot less with a trackball, and that's just because that's how the original arcade cabinet was set up, and using it definitely is an important part of getting this game to feel every bit as good as it used to back in the arcade days. So as far as the Multisystem 2 arcade is concerned, in all of my testing and all my playing around with it, and again, you can ask for additional tests because I am going to run a part 2 on this in the future, so I know what you want to see. I have absolutely, on the hardware and implementation side of things, no notes. And if that doesn't sound familiar as a term in filmmaking, when you send an edit in, you never once get back a no notes notation from the producers. And if you do, you absolutely just go out and have a party because it means somehow you did everything perfect in the client's eyes. And in this instance, me as the quote-unquote client, I don't really have anything to say to Heber that I would change about this thing whatsoever. The JAMMA implementation works perfectly, the size and fitment is good, the trackball absolutely did everything it needs to do, and you can pop a spinner on there if you want as well. You have the kick harness, you have that control dock to allow you for different inputs, you have the potentiometer for the volume, you have that GPIO header to get snack, even if I can't quite figure out why I would want to do that in an arcade cabinet, it's great to have it, and you have all the quality engineering that Heber has done on the Multisystem 2, and honestly, this is really an above and beyond sort of thing. This video is from the Retro Collective where they were showing reading out all of the different analog value changes with a potentiometer here with an actual spinner to get these cores controlling even better than they ever did before. And honestly, some of the games they're talking about, probably some that like 9 out of 10 people aren't even going to play, so it's insane that Heber went that extra country mile in this instance, or because they are from the UK, the extra country kilometer to get this thing every bit as good as they possibly could. Now, as far as when this is going to be for sale, I don't have an exact date yet. It is going to go on sale in May, but if it does have a date before you see this video, I will leave a link in the description below. And just so you know, so we're very clear and transparent, this was sent in from Heber for review, but I am under no pre-existing conditions to say anything other than what I found. What I found is if you need a JAMMA MiSTer FPGA for your arcade cabinet, look no further. The Multisystem 2 arcade absolutely nails it on every single front, and I really can't think of anything it's missing that I would want. Short of that, we're done. If you have any questions or want to see more tests, leave them in the comments down below, but I'll see you guys next time. And don't forget, feed your mouse the cheese. Bye-bye.